come here, Rhea. Let me rub you up and down with some baby oil. Yeah, before you walk. Oh, let me just get your legs. Let me get your back. Let me get the lats. Yo, yeah. You look so good. Here we go. Oh.
Oh my God.
Okay, look. This is getting out of hand, alright? I can understand you loving Rhea Ripley, Triple H, but at some point, it really gets to become a little bit creepy. You understand? When Rhea Ripley made her debut in the WWE, what was she called? Oh my God, the next Charlotte Flair, Aussie Charlotte Flair, Kangaroo Flair. So obviously Rhea Ripley went out of her way and she tried to change her gimmick up, okay? She buzzed the sides of her hair, got a little new look to her, and ultimately when she started to become who we all know her to be, right? She started to shift from, oh yeah, I'm just like a little happy blondie to like a damn emo, right? And it all truly changed when she made her main roster debut in March of 2021, and in that moment, Triple H, the damn creep, man, this damn creep, he was like, you know what, Rhea, I need you all for myself. Buddy Matthews, you're fired. All of a sudden, bro, 3 months later, June 2021, Buddy Matthews, he immediately gets released, and guess what? You can only guess what happened then. All right, Triple H was like, all right, Rhea, come back to Gorilla. How about you stick around Gorilla? And you looked at WWE Unreal. This is where the entire inspiration comes from, right? You look at WWE Unreal, and he is like, just like hugging, tugging, groping, rubbing. I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing, bro? Like, if I'm working in WWE and like, of course, I'm a guy, right? And if he's like over there, coming over, he's like, yeah, heels advocate, come over here. And then he's like hugging me face to face, nose to nose, putting his hand on my face. I'm like, dude, get the fuck off me, bro. And then like, you look at every time like Io Sky comes out, he's hugging her, doing all that stuff. But when it comes to Rhea, he's like, damn, like he takes it to another level. He's like, yeah, let me turn you around, let me rub you down with some baby oil before you walk out, Rhea. Oh my God, your lash are so white. Damn, man, like all of that is just, in my opinion, clear, I don't know, favoritism to the past that he had with Chyna. You look at the way Rhea Ripley was in the beginning, and of course, like NXT was also ran by Triple H in that period, or at least he had a lot of influence in NXT. And I'm sure when Triple H saw Rhea, right, she saw just essentially Chyna but without the roids. So essentially like the best of both worlds, and he just couldn't probably forget about her ever since then. And he pulled her aside and he said, look, Rhea, how about you dye your hair jet black, let it grow a little bit, how about some piercings, how about some more muscle, how about some leather, how about some chains, how about some straps, how about some choker chains, and how about you get on the swing and let me just bounce you off a wall, bro. Nah, bro, Triple H was actually bugging with that, bro. And like the thing is this, right? I understand that when you have somebody who is somewhat of a genetic anomaly, somebody like Charlotte Flair, especially in the female division, they can immediately ascend. And when you have somebody like Rhea Ripley, they can immediately ascend as well. And you have contrasting appeals, right? You have like the glamour, glamour type of wrestler with all the flair like Charlotte, and then you have the complete opposite. That's a great visual. That's why they did it, right? That's why they wanted to have Rhea Ripley be essentially Chyna 2.0. And that was a change that had to happen because you don't want to have people like that kind of look alike. Like if you want to have Jade Cargill and EST Bianca Belair wrestle against one another, like dude, they're both muscly, they're both black, they both have like a certain type of appeal to them that kind of is very similar, and it's very like hard to like differentiate their appeal. If you have Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton wrestling one another, they're both flary, glamour girls that like have bling bling diamonds and all that. It is not a different appeal. It's damn near the same. But if it's Tiffany Stratton versus Ripley, if it's Io Sky versus Flair, if it's Bianca Belair versus Stephanie Vicari, that is an immediate different perspective. That's a different appeal. So I definitely know why he did it. And she was the right girl for her as well, right? So there's definitely a lot of inspirations drawn from Chyna. And I think that a lot of the times, Triple H kind of wants to make up for the way that he treated Chyna. I'll make a separate video going over the history between Chyna and Triple H. But essentially what it comes down to is that Triple H really backstabbed Chyna when Triple H made his first debut in WCW, right? They asked him, what is your name? My name is Paul Levesque. And then, oh, Levesque, is that French? Yeah, okay, you're going to be a French monarch, all right? And then you're going to come out being all posh. You're going to do like the pedigree because, like your finisher is going to get called the pedigree because you are one pedigree above the rest, right? So everything had like a little posh essence to it. But clearly he never got over, He goes to the WWE, and right away his real talent started to show. Like, his real talent wasn't promos, which he was still good at. It wasn't really wrestling. He was a good wrestler. He was very good, very mechanical. Everything was top notch, but he didn't really excel in anything aside from being a very good heel. But ultimately, when he made his debut in the WWE, right, he was very good at politicking. That was his ultimate strength. I mean, look at him. He was a no-name guy. He was a little kid, and now he's just, the head of WWE Creative, right? He runs Creative WWE, essentially. Like, just forget about TKO. He runs WWE right now. He took over what Vince McMahon did. And that was just what he needed to do, right? He goes into the WWE, and it wasn't until he met Chyna that his entire appeal changed. As soon as he met Chyna, what happened? He went from like a little baguette eater, like a little croissant eater, to like being a damn like muncher, you know what I'm saying? Like, he was starting to munch on the beef. Right, he met Chyna. All of a sudden, he's wearing leather caps, leather jackets, denim jeans. He was getting a little bit more bulked up. I think, Chyna slipped him some steroids that she was using, and all of a sudden, we have the game. Right, the transformation was complete. And at that time, it was no secret that he formed the Clique, or he was in the Clique. Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and of course Chyna was also in the mix, or even X-Pac and Billy Gunn, I think, as well. So a lot of the time they had massive backstage influence, and at that time he tried to get over so fast to the point where he just wanted to get to the point where nobody else could shine. And that is when The Rock, when he made his debut as Rocky Maivia, the Clique, right, the DX, Triple H's entire clan, they were torturing poor Rock, man. Rocky Maivia, he was getting tortured, but he stuck through it. And I think Bret Hart, he gave him a lot of props for just sticking through it, biting down on it, because at that time wrestling was a very, very hostile workplace. Everybody wanted to get over on one another. Nobody wanted to do a job. Everybody had something to lose at all times, so nobody wanted to put somebody else over. So when Triple H formed the Clique, he had a little shield around him to the point where he just couldn't lose no more. But ultimately, when the Clique did the curtain call at Madison Square Garden and his friends left and Shawn Michaels was injured, who was the only guy to get essentially dunked on? It was Triple H. Triple H was the guy over there that had to eat pins, who had to job out to the Ultimate Warrior, and he was essentially there to lose and get punished. And even Vince McMahon was saying look, you gotta just stick it out for a year, and after that it will get better, I promise, right? And at that point it was all right, what can I do now? So essentially Triple H, he used Chyna, he formed DX, he got over. Shawn Michaels started to kind of get back into the mix as well, and he started to get over and over. And at a certain point, right, Triple H was all right, I kind of have enough of Chyna now. I mean, these two lived together, they hit the roads together, they were in an actual relationship for years. But as soon as the next level had to be reached and Triple H wanted to get to that world championship level, look, all of a sudden, Chyna finds a letter written from Stephanie McMahon to Triple H, a love letter. She finds it. She confronts Triple H about it. Triple H was cheating on Chyna for a damn year almost. And as soon as Chyna rings up Vince McMahon about this, Vince McMahon essentially said, look, you're out. And then she got cut, and that was it. Right? Triple H never reached out. Triple H backstabbed her. And I think that guilt, that lifetime guilt, truly plagued him, because what happened with Chyna afterwards? She spiraled out of control. She lost her muscles. She was doing random gigs. She turned into the adult film industry. She started to get hooked on cocaine, meds, whatever it might be. She was spiraling out of control. And ultimately, she had lost her life in an overdose. That was it. And I think it took years after her death before she got inducted into the Hall of Fame. And that is just what I really can't stand, right? Why would you want to wait until somebody, I know why they did it. They want to wait until somebody's dead in the ground and they can't speak and they can't make some bad statements about the company and hurt their induction into the Hall of Fame, because you don't want a guy that enters the Hall of Fame and all they do is bad mouthing the WWE, right? Kind of like Bret Hart, essentially. I mean, Bret Hart is right when he says, but what he says, but they don't want that, and especially somebody who wasn't in the film, in the adult film industry, and Chyna even made a video about trying to rebuild her relationship with the WWE and Triple H, Vince, Stephanie, all that stuff. I think it got 1 million views at that time as well, but to no avail. Nobody really cared about her in that way. And then until she died, all of a sudden Triple H wants to induct her into the Hall of Fame, and it's sad to me, because all that backstabbing, all that betrayal that Triple H did, it's kind of showing itself with Rhea Ripley, because Right now, he's booking Rhea very dominantly. And look, I am not against Rhea Ripley not looking strong in the ring, but you can definitely tell that there is a lot of favoritism and a lot of appeal that reflects Chyna in Rhea Ripley that Triple H just simply can't rub off. And the way that he's hugging her backstage and how do you do that, bro? Like, at the end of the day, yeah, she has talent, but you're her boss, you're her colleague, don't be rubbing up and down a fucking woman like that, bro. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, you think Buddy Matthews sees that and is like, oh my god, that's so nice. Like, deep down inside, he wants to kill the fucking guy, you know what I mean? So I think he should set some boundaries a little bit, but ultimately he's the boss. And when you're the boss, look at the crazy things that can happen. Look at the situation between Vince McMahon and Janelle Grant allegedly. So things can spiral out of control pretty quickly when you have a lot of power and you are the boss, especially when you're like a guy and you have female workers that kind of look up to you as well. So that is the big problem here that I have. And he even reflected it in the WWE Unreal documentary. He kind of admitted to this as well. He's like, when you have talent like Rhea Ripley, when you have talent like Roman Reigns or all the big names, right? When you have those big names, you don't want to show them. So justifiably so, he looks at Rhea and says, you are a superstar. But what does he really do with that superstar, right? He has it win-win-win. And when she is in positions to wrestle for the title, he knows that ultimately the title belongs to Rhea, right? Because it's a title she never lost, yeah? So ultimately, she's going to go into a match with, Naomi or Io Sky or whatever it might be. And until she actually is going to win it, she will never eat the pin. It'll be a running DQ. Even at WrestleMania, she was about to lose, all of a sudden Io Sky jumps on everybody and a boom, 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 and then she pins Bianca Belair, So he's always protecting Rhea Ripley. And of course, you want to have your, dominant superstars be dominant. And as soon as they kind of eat a clean pin, it kind of shatters the entire illusion and the entire reality of it. And so that is the big issue that I have with Triple H. If you want Rhea Ripley to be dominant, if you want Rhea Ripley to be strong, why are you not pulling the trigger on her? You go into WrestleMania 41 and the babyface, they can't keep winning, because if they keep winning, then all of a sudden the crowd will turn on you. And you don't want that, right? You want the babyface to be always cheered, always loved. But the problem is, when the babyface keeps winning and overcoming every single obstacle, you get the situation with John Cena, right? Oh my god, they're always winning, you suck, and you don't want that, because it is really, really hard to kind of regain the fan service, the fanfare, the fan love. Look at Charlotte Flair. I mean, she hasn't even won in 2-3 years, but her coming back to win a Royal Rumble and challenge Tiffany Stratton was, oh my god, the worst thing in the world. She literally came back from a career-ending injury, you know what I mean? And then she goes into WrestleMania 41. I mean, she already did the job at 40, comes back and does a job again at 41, and they're still hating on her, acting like, oh my gosh, she came back and she beat Rhea Ripley, she came back and she beat Tiffany Stratton. She didn't even do any of that. So you can already see how quick, sometimes it is unjustified, but nonetheless, when it gets to that position, you don't want to have your main champion, your main selling attraction to be treated like that, right? Even if it is kayfabe or not, you don't want that type of reaction. You want her always to sell merch, move merch, be cool, be a fan, be at expos. You want that, right? And Triple H, because he fails at booking proper new stars, what he really does is stall. And that is really where Rhea Ripley is right now. She's in this random feud with Io Sky and Asuka, and it doesn't make any sense. Send her over to SmackDown. People don't like Tiffany Stratton. Put the belt on Rhea Ripley. Make Tiffany Stratton turn heel, whatever it might be, but make Rhea Ripley become the new SmackDown World Champion, and that will work, great wonders as well. That will be a great work. But until you do that, we are simply waiting. And I get it. Monday Night Raw, that is the big show. You want her to be there. But you want her to be there and be a big factor in the division, but you don't want her to be the champion. Look, the female division sucks as it is. And if you have, a lot of talents being spread around Monday Night Raw and SmackDown, right? Because with the men, they're swapping places all the time, right? One time they'll be on SmackDown, the next time they'll be on Raw. But the women, they're very much so separated. So why not go in there and put her on SmackDown, I guess he wants her to be on Monday Night Raw and Netflix. I guess before she walks out, I guess Triple H wants to rub her down with some baby oil, spread her around her lats, ink her up with some new tattoos, put her name on her glute or something, Triple H is really bugging these days, man. and the uncanny and uncomfortable obsession that Intern John says Triple H has definitely rings true. That is definitely what I feel as well right now, especially looking at the current state of Rhea Ripley. She doesn't seem to be having any direction, floating around with Io Sky. Io Sky can go back to the tag divisions with like the Kabuki Warriors. She can do her own thing, but Rhea Ripley definitely needs the world title, especially now that it's vacated and it's up for grabs. Rhea Ripley versus Stephanie Vaquer is probably going to be the wrong move. They're both over. They're both baby faces, so they're probably not going to make that match happen. And once again, Rhea Ripley will be screwed out of that position, and we'll have to wait and wait and wait until, I guess, the entire division is stale, and then they'll put the title back on Ripley. This is the Heels Advocate, and I'm out.